Any corrections?
Nope.
Make a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from the January 14th meeting.
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Okay, so we have nothing pending on
No.
plans. Have Mylars, I believe they have all been signed already.
Yeah,
Oh.
it's just on there to acknowledge it for the
Right.
minutes.
All right, so first applicant is Telford Borough Authority. You want to come up to the podium?
I'm Pat DeGangi. I'm with CKS Engineers, and this is Camille Basili with CKS. We're here on behalf of Telford Borough Authority regarding a Act 537 special study prepared for Almont Avenue on the east side of 309. Camille can explain it. I'm going to let Camille.
There's a stand right there.
Thank you.
Yeah, easel, that's what.
Can
That's
I
what's on our
see?
second slide too, like you did advance.
Oh.
Yeah, if you can go to that next slide. Yes, there.
So this is a public sewer exhibit that shows the 7 properties on Almont Road. It's to the east of PA 309, and sewer service is being extended to these 7 properties. The properties have experienced malfunctions, and one resident complained to DEP and asked about the possibility of extending public sewer service to this area. And it will be a gravity sewer main, about 700 linear feet, 8-inch PVC pipe, and it will connect to the Sellersville Borough collection system and be conveyed to the Penridge Wastewater Treatment Authority's treatment plant. And if you have any questions.
Let me just add a few things. So, this project came about because the road is currently open. North Penn put a water main in that road. Before it's final paved, there was an opportunity to put the sewer in. So that's why we're moving forward with this. The other thing, as you're all aware, the Act 537 planning, this is one of the many steps in that process. There's going to be a 30-day public comment period. And ultimately, the township will have to adopt the special study by resolution before we submit it to DEP. So tonight, we're looking for your recommendation for approval of the special study. There'll also be a order that the work is currently progressing.
The North Penn work.
The North Penn work.
Right.
This was handled as part of that contract.
Right.
So we're like I said, we're looking for your recommendation for approval of the special study.
So this being Sellersville service area, why is Telford providing the sewer?
This has always been planned and talked about in many discussions with Sellersville. This will ultimately provide sewer service up to Route 309, in which ultimately Telford's plan is to put a boarding across 309 to serve the west side when need be. This is the best way for Telford Borough Authority to serve that northern or their northern part of their service area, Region 2 in West Rock Hill Township.
Right.
This was always part of that piece of that puzzle.
So we've been told about the sewer sleeve that's going to be installed when they run the water under through. So this is all.
This is a part of it. While that road is open, we're putting the sewer in.
Do you have an agreement with Sellersville, or is that it's still in the works?
That's still in the works. We do have an agreement with them, but we have to amend that agreement for this conveyance.
These residents will be Telford Borough Authority customers.
Yes, they will.
You just have a conveyance agreement with the borough.
Exactly. We also had a recent meeting with the manager and solicitor from West Rock Hill. In all likelihood, we'll have to amend our agreement with West Rock Hill to also serve this area. Right now, we're just putting the pipe in all these things need to be worked out before actual service occurs.
Right.
I had another question. Just, and unfortunately I was away. I wasn't able to be at that meeting last week. At the township. You have cost estimates in here for roughly $300,000, but then it indicates that the cost to the residents will be $10,000. Is that a capped cost that
It's not a cap cost, it's a rough estimate. This service line could ultimately serve a larger area. And the larger the numbers, the less the cost is. TVA's current tapping fee is $6,035. We're estimating, the construction cost of this divvied up by what this could ultimately serve. That's how we ended up with the $10,000.
Okay, that's what I wanted to be clear that
It would be
it's
recaptured
down the road. Right. Yeah, when you just look at it, it's like these numbers don't add
That
up.
makes sense there. That's the sense of it.
What I thought.
I think the fear of the residents of the township is how many homes are going to be served to recapture that. Once you get under 309.
But right now, we're looking to just serve those 7
Right.
properties.
I understand that. And I,
There has been, there has been a need in that area by, systems.
I mean, I fully support taking care of these properties that are in need of, so are a little concerned about what happens down the pipeline.
Could you back up a slide, Sherry? That one. So I guess I'm a little bit confused about the conveyance, the need for conveyance. The orange area number 2 is your area.
Correct.
So I don't understand how Sellersville is involved if that area is already your area.
So, the road we're talking about serving is right here.
Yeah.
Telford Borough Authority does not have sanitary sewer service near this to convey flow through the rest of their system.
Okay.
So this would be the easiest path to getting to the plant.
Oh, okay.
That's, in order to send lines out into this area from areas currently served in Telford Borough, other service area, Region 1, it would be difficult.
So
This is
it's a pass through.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Is there any plan to run any sewer out of your zone 2 there to your plant, or are you figuring everything's going to Sellersville?
Everything would be conveyed through Sellersville.
All of zone 2?
In the future.
Well,
And if, yeah, no, I understand.
Yeah.
You guys have any questions?
no.
So what are you looking for tonight? Officially?
Recommendation for approval of the Act 537 special study.
Yeah, so what they require now is a letter from the planning commission. So if you would make a motion to authorize Chris to sign a letter in support of the Act 537 special study area, the office will prepare it and Chris could sign a letter.
You want to sign it?
Yeah, public.
That's why you make the big bucks.
Yeah, you know what? Let's open this up to public comment. I know we have some people have some concerns here. So we typically take public comment before taking action. Sure. Anyone have any public comment? Brian, can you come up?
Sure.
Want to get you on board.
Not us, you guys.
Brian Landis, 125 Augustine. Yeah, I think every time we hear these things that it's kind of incremental, we always know it's just the first step in a process, which I think we all agree. My concern is, and I think one of you guys mentioned at one of the meetings, maybe it was Board of Supervisors, that it seems these days the developers are driving us versus us driving where this township wants to go. There's so much. Select Properties, as an example, has 500 homes proposed, and that's just one developer. My concern is 45 of those homes are going to be right on the corner behind where all this is. So it's just, to me, what's mitigated development in this township is the fact that properties either don't perk or they have to go on a well. So it's been self-mitigating. Once the North Penn Water Authority comes through and the sewer comes over, everything's going to change, and it's going to happen really quick. And we're all sitting in longer lines of traffic. The schools are, there was just an article that came out today about Penn Ridge. Costs are rising faster than the income. And if you take a look at the pressures of what one kid brings on the school, average property tax is $4,200. And a kid at Penn Ridge costs 15 grand. So each house being built with a child creates a $15,000 deficit, 10 to 15 grand. So my concern is we need to take a breath and really either, if there's a way to change our zoning, I don't know if that's possible, to accommodate for how fast things are about to change. Basically, how many houses can go onto an acre? Because again, we no longer have that self-mitigation of the fact that there either doesn't perk or something that there's not enough well water. But my concern is that once this comes underneath, and we knew it was going to come along, everything's just going to explode, and we're not going to be able to get a hand on it. Because again, the 45 houses, the same developer wants to put 82 on the other corner. He wants to put 26 on the other corner at Lawn and Ridge, from my understanding. So all of that's just going to take off, and our heads are going to be spinning. So that's just my concern, guys.
Anyone else? All right. Any action you want to take here? Oh, do you have some? Come on up, Dave.
I was waiting for Brian to go back. Be polite. Dave Rice, 219 Augustine. I understand what you guys are doing. I don't think our infrastructure in West Rock Hill will support what is the long term, a year down the road. Once you guys get under the pipe or under the 309, you're looking to expand, just like Brian was saying. I'll piggyback on everything he said. I don't see that as West Rock Hill as we know it, and I don't think it's appropriate for West Rock Hill.
We're not driving.
I grew up here, and I used to be able to ride my 10-speed out Ridge Road. You can't anymore, and I think it's just ridiculous that you guys are looking to push developers by giving them, an open, I don't know, a blank check.
Right now, this has nothing to do with it.
Right now, that's why I heard that.
It's the Serve 7 property.
So you can't guarantee me in 10 years you're not going to develop it.
And that's.
So that's what
West
I'm.
Rock Hill's business.
Yeah. See, I'm a West Rock Hill lifer. I've been here born and raised, so that's where I come from. I don't want to see a change. West Rock Hill is West Rock Hill to me. I don't want to see a Percy. Otherwise, I would have moved to Percy. That's all.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. What's your pleasure, fellas? Comments first? I mean, I said I support repairing failing systems. I'm not so sure I support running sewer to all the proposed development that we have on record right now. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
How's that? Sorry about that. Any other comments?
Is there any precedent either way on this?
It's in Sellersville Sewer Service Area.
Right.
It's the designated public sewer service to the township. Or it just happens to be that Telford is going to serve it instead of Sellersville Borough.
Right.
One of the reasons we need this paperwork, although DEP is now requiring this paperwork for everyone, everywhere. But it does not tie you into any future.
No, I understand. But it's going to open that door.
Well, in general, no one will want to hear this. In general, municipalities not supposed to control development with sewer. Supposed to control with zoning.
Right.
and other planning processes, not where there is sewer or not sewer available.
I was gonna say, I think, and I agree wholeheartedly with what you're saying. I really do think they're two separate questions.
Is what?
They're two separate questions. Providing sewer service, the 7 failing systems is what they're here to propose. If they're taking advantage of the fact that there's existing work being done, that they can put the pipe in the ground now versus at some point in time, possibly coming back and digging it up again later, to me is smart business. Even if that pipe runs all the way under 309 to the other side, it's still smart business. Whether that pipe ever actually gets used on the other side of 309, I think as Steve said, that's not Telford's call one way or the other. That's the township's call for planning and zoning and other restrictions. They're doing their job essentially.
Right.
Why is Sellersville not doing it? Why is Telford, if it's their service area and it's gonna go to their plant, why isn't Sellersville doing it versus you? Other than to get it stubbed over to your service area on this side?
First of all, you made a very good point. You put things into context. Why Sellersville's not doing it, I'm not exactly sure. They're just late on the draw here. We wouldn't be before this board if it was, or nobody would be coming before this council if Sellersville were doing it. It's in their public sewer service area. The only reason why we're here, it's a change in planning. Your Act 537 plan called for Sellersville to do it, and they're not doing it.
Well, that's what I mean.
Our experience with Sellersville is, at least, well, in the last 20 years, they have not wanted to extend their lines outside of the borough boundaries. I mean, they have a service area that's from 1977. The original map was made, but in the last 20 years, they haven't had an interest in actually serving
And that may have,
anything outside of the
that
borough.
may have something to do with PUC and turning outside.
Why wasn't that addressed in the 537 amendments that we did the other year? Did we do the 537 plan?
Oh,
If that was a
Yes,
known
and we-
thing, they haven't wanted to do it since whatever,
we took a lot of their area away in that.
but not all of it.
Not all of it.
That's
We-
what that map shows.
Right. Area 5 took a chunk of Sellersville area that was readily servable by PRA at that time.
Yeah, but I mean, if they've made it known that they don't want to service outside of the borough, why didn't we? We knew what the borough boundary was. It didn't change, but. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, well, for servicing the lots to get them handled, it just seems strange why all of a sudden now we have a neighboring authority that's taking over a portion to be able to get
I
something
think
stubbed.
what Pat also just alluded to is the borough is not an authority. It's a borough-owned system, which then leads them to PUC issues in serving outside of their community. Doesn't mean they can't, but it
And the reason why.
it causes problems.
The reason why Telford's jumping in here, because for us to ever serve that end of West Rock Hill, this line would have to ultimately go in. But now is just the opportunity.
So are we making a recommendation to the supervisors? Or-
Yes. Well, it's not really to the supervisor. You're just making a recommendation that you find this satisfactory. It'll go in the whole package that goes to DEP. You're really making a recommendation to DEP and the supervisors.
Would this be an amendment to the 537?
Yes. Yes, it'll be approved as an amendment to 537. Every little development that does a planning module is approved as an amendment. 537.
Right. So by not doing that, we're going to halt the repairs on those 7 homes.
Yes.
I would unpopularly move forward with this. move forward.
Yeah, it kind of puts us in a untenable position.
Yeah.
You know? Whereas you want to help the 7 people, you don't want to.
How do we know that for sure they're failing? We went out and saw them failing, or we guessing?
But can you answer that?
I believe it's 26 Almont Road has recorded correspondence reaching out to DEP requesting service. The Department of Health for Bucks County also has records of each malfunction that's been listed. So I believe it's in the special study. There should be 2 malfunctions. There was a holding tank put in, which is not preferable. It's a temporary solution and has to be pumped. And I believe in the ordinance, if there is public sewer service that becomes available, you're not allowed to continue using a holding tank. So there have been recorded malfunctions, and the most recent one is why this prompted us to look at this again, because DEP reached out to us and
One property and then one was cleaned up with a holding tank and that gets pumped every 3 years.
And then there's 2 other malfunctions. And there's been high frequency in pumping rates, which costs a lot of money to the residents.
Every 3 years you have to get pumped.
Now, when you're only on a holding tank, you're not pumping every 3 years. You're pumping every time that tank fills up.
Bills.
That's not a septic system.
And each property is about less than 1 acre, which means that if you do have to relocate your septic sewer system, there's not really much area to relocate it to, which that prompts DEP then to say, you don't really have anywhere to put your next septic sewer system because it can't be right next to ground that doesn't infiltrate anymore. And all of any malfunctions contaminates drinking water. So that's the reason why we're interested in fixing this problem, is because any property serviced by wells in that area, all groundwater is connected. So if your sewage is leaking over, it's not only your problem, it's a neighboring resident's problem as well.
Let me ask the question a different way. If none of those 7 homes were there, would you still take advantage of the fact that the water company is running their line up Almont Road and under 309 to put a pipe in, just in case you had to eventually serve the west side of 309?
That's hard to say. In all likelihood, we might. Yeah, we might. But when the water main went in, because that water main's already in, that got residents inquiring about sanitary sewer because they're having issues. I know of one guy, I don't know the exact property, but they have put off fixing their system. In hope that sanitary sewer will be brought there. So the pressure came about by the residents.
You know, I'm saying if those homes didn't exist, or if they had perfectly working systems, wouldn't you take, from a business standpoint, wouldn't you take advantage of the fact that it was an open?
Yeah, in all likelihood, we would, yeah.
So
I'm sorry,
the fact that there's,
The mic, please, so we can catch you.
the fact that you're serving 7 homes off of this line that you probably were going to put in
It's hard
anyway.
to say, though. There's a good chance. we
It's
would.
hypothetical,
Yeah,
but
it's hypothetical. If there's no homes to serve, there's no way of recouping costs. Why put it in also? You can make that argument.
okay.
Yeah, so it's hard to say. I really couldn't say.
Okay.
The fact that there's 7 homes with on-lot systems, that
Tips the scale.
tips the scale for sure.
And DEP is on board with this plan? Is that how I'm reading this? Well, as I stated, I'm gonna make an unpopular request that we recommend the amendment to 537D.
We make it with prejudice.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a popular vote. That's nice.
So.
Can you got to come up.
Oh, sorry. Are you guys around in 06 on here? 2006
No.
on there. So in 2006, roughly, I don't know if you guys remember, they rezoned Augustine planned commercial.
I was part of that.
So they were going to bring, there was concern because Telford Water Authority owns the rights to this road for water, my understanding, Telford Augustine. And there was discussion about they couldn't bring it up though. It was weird. The contract doesn't have a cancellation clause in it. So we could never cancel it. It was a one-sided. So I just remember there was a lot of conversation about that. But they couldn't come up anyway until zones 5 and 6. And this is just bad memory. So if I'm wrong, I apologize. It's been 20 years. But they couldn't come up this way until zones 5 and 6 either failed or were filled out in Telford. So, and they were only on zone 3 at the time. So again, sorry if I get a little cynical over the years from this stuff, but it sounds to me like if they're not filled out in Telford, is this just an end around to get up? Because again, they're in business to make money, as all these municipalities are.
We're not for profit. We're not in business to make money. We're in business to serve communities.
Okay, so regardless, it just seems to me like maybe this is just, and I apologize again, it seems like if you couldn't come up Augustine, is this just an end around to get up into this area to serve it if you can't come up Augustine?
I think what
Sorry.
The agreement with West Rock Hill is area 1 has to be served to the satisfaction of West Rock Hill before service into area 2 can occur. Area 1 in particular, it was identified as Hidden Valley Lane area. And that is currently, that went through planning with West Rock Hill recently, went out to bid recently. So we're in the phase of working out an amendment to your connection ordinance to serve that. In the recent discussions we had with the township last week, we're satisfying service to Region 1 in order to serve Region 2. That agreement's from 1977, if I recall, and that area has been failing also since then. That's why it was identified in that agreement.
But just to kind of wrap the loop on that, this approval doesn't change that condition in the existing agreements between the township and Telford.
Right.
Even though they may eventually use this line, your approval tonight doesn't change that stipulation in the agreement that the township has with Telford. Those are other discussions between the township and Telford, and you
Right.
may hear about that again. But that's not what you're
Gotcha.
changing at all tonight.
Understood. All right. Yes. Name and address, please.
Mary Ann Wilson, 500 Joanna Drive, Sellersville, West Rock Hill up here. The houses that have the failing septic systems, are they in ground or are they sand mounds?
Yeah, they're probably conventional. or-
And they don't have any room to put a sand fountain or one that like over here, just the long narrow ones? They can't do something like that. They have to have.
I would imagine, I don't know for sure, but obviously the one that's on our holding tank, they don't have. Usually the case.
I'm just saying that, like a nice little sand mound or one of those long, I forget what they call them, the micro mounds. He should know that. Yeah, because I mean, if they're all in ground, why can't we just, do a sand mound? Because everybody else has to, right? Up here in West Rock Hill, we're all doing sand mounds and have to refurbish our sand mounds if needed and replace them. Right. So there's a difference between the 10,000 connecting here and the 30,000 maybe to put in a new micro system. But I think maybe they should be looking at that instead of or as an alternative, instead of just saying, oh, our system's failing, let's, get sewer. It's just to keep the integrity of West Rock Hill. Just think about it. Because we all know Select Properties has chomping on the bit to get underneath that sewer underneath. They tried on Mountain View. They'll try it here. So I'm just saying, I've worked with Select Properties, and yeah, it'll change the whole face of our township. Thank you.
What is the likelihood of any type of other system going in on those properties? And a small property.
Well, one or two of them might be large enough to do something, but it's a public sewer service area in your Act 537 plan. DEP's primary, if you're looking at the hierarchy of what to do to fix a failed system, is if you have sewer in the area, you connect them to public sewer. The sewer's on the street essentially already. We're just extending it past these couple properties.
Can I add something else?
Yes, please do.
Special study did also look at the soils in the area, and they're not conducive to a lot system, so.
We need to move forward here. What's your thoughts?
I'm prepared to make a motion to recommend that a letter be drafted for the chairman to sign approving the Act 537 special study.
Second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Hey,
Abstention? Motion carries. All right. Sorry, folks, but kind of tied here. All right. So you're done?
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. All right. Next on the agenda is. Oh, now you're done. You're up.
Good evening. Nate Fox from Obermeyer on behalf of the applicant, Benaya LP. We're back again. This is for the property at 3115 Old State Road. We were before you, believe, last month. We received preliminary recommendation, but not final. We had gone to the Board of Supervisors. They authorized the solicitor to draft a resolution for preliminary approval, but would allow her to prepare a conditional preliminary final resolution if we came back to the Planning Commission and resolve the concerns. We do have two review letters from Wynn Associates and Bowman. Could we go to the slide that shows the property? Some things that we've addressed, we have submitted a revised waiver letter, which touches on a waiver related to Old State Road. One thing we've worked with the township on, we are going to be doing road improvements along our frontage, but in addition, there will be road improvements made from the intersection of Old State Road down to the end of the Wawa improvements. And Alex, correct me if I'm wrong, it's a 24-foot cart path.
And there's a exhibit of that, two further slides, but the board's desire and what we've worked out with Steve's office, meetings with the township, is currently a 19 to 20-foot roadway, widening plus or minus 4 additional feet on the west side of the roadway, to get to a consistent 20-foot cartway, as noted from our Old State Meeting House intersection up to the Wawa driveway, and then north of the Wawa driveway, the Wawa improvements for traffic signal.
right.
So, and Zach, for your trucks, that 24-foot cartway allows 2 trucks to reasonably pass each other on the road going opposite directions, correct?
Correct. There's no problem. They're about 8 feet wide.
So, and there are some existing conditions that we're going to have to work around. And a lot of this, we have a plan, but some of this will be determined on site as the construction's going on. But the intention is to provide the 24-foot cartway. And I believe Alex, we also discussed some adjustments to the Old State Road and Meeting House Road intersection as well.
Yeah, the other thing that was requested, and there is some drainage improvements at this corner. If you're familiar with the property, there's a brick or concrete kind of head wall. The drain from the northwest corner of the intersection comes across and discharges into the swale that runs down the west side of Meeting House. But Steve had requested, we're showing on the plan, if we could get any additional paving on that corner to help soften that turn and soften the offset. The roads are slightly offset. So we're able to add enough pavement to open up that radius to a 30-foot radius. I think it's about a 15 to 20-foot radius today. So we can fit a little extra paving and get more of an arc on that corner. That'll help get a little bit more paving on that edge. But we're limited to how far we can go by that existing concrete wall that's there. So all the work would be 4 to 4.5 feet on the west side, and then some additional rounding on the southwest corner. And basically the basis of that 24-foot and everything being on the west basically centers the roadway in between the two barns. Currently, the 20-foot roadway with about, if you're familiar with that kind of the pinch point of the barns. Right now on the east side, it's about 5 feet, and on the west side, it's about 9 foot from road to barn. So if we put a 4 foot on the west side, then we basically center that road and have about a 5 foot strip on each side. And as Nate noted, you know, the 24 foot standard PennDOT lane is 12 foot for traffic. The 24 feet is 2 standard PennDOT lane versus the current condition, which is 9.5 to 10 foot, which is a narrow.
A little tight.
They have, since the last time they spoke to you, they did complete the field survey work out there to confirm what those distances are from the barns and essentially verify that the 24-foot lane
We can,
works.
we can sneak it in there.
I mean, we painted the lines off the ground and set cones out and it's, you know, reviewed it with the property owner's water facility.
I'm sorry, can you go up to the mic because we're not going to catch any of this for the minutes. Thank you.
Yes, as you know, at the previous planning commission meeting, we had an exhibit that was based off some aerial photos and some Wawa drawings. As noted, we have since done a survey, updated the exhibit based on true survey information. The surveyors even painted the 24-foot limit on the road. We dropped some cones, reviewed it with the property owners, and I think Zach met with them, and he can speak to it, but my understanding is everybody's comfortable with the improvements, and we are agreeing to a 24-foot width, which is what the Board of Supervisors requested.
Did have an opportunity to meet with Bob Blum on many occasions in the last month. And we did have Hal Engineering do the survey, put the stakes in the ground. Last Saturday, Bob ran a line himself to see where the cartway would go, and he's okay with everything. We discussed it extensively. Jay Kaiser told us last month he really wants 24 feet, and he drives a truck. He knows what it needs to be. So we got it to 24 feet. It's 24 inches from the utility pole, which is required on the 309 side of Meeting House Road. Yeah, we're not changing that side, so that's still 24 inches away, and then it's 24 feet from there. Bob was okay with that. It's not going to hit his barns on either side or his roofs that come out or his spouting or gutters.
So, and everything in Steve's letters will comply. We're happy to discuss any points if you like. There is one point in the Bowman letter, comment number 2, regarding requests of the residents, regarding the intersection of Meeting House and Old State, that they'd like an all-way stop control. The letter requests a study. Zach will gladly put in the 4-way stop post-construction if it's deemed warranted by the township. If it's a public safety issue, just the issue of doing another study, just to confirm. Our study already said it's not warranted, but if the township would determine that, you know, it'd be in the best interest of public health, safety, and welfare to have a 4-way stop, we just asked to forego the study, and if the township makes a request, we'll just do it. And is that a fair?
What do you have to do to get a 4-way stop sign?
Study.
A study. Who approves it?
It- it has to meet PennDOT warrants for four-way stop. Their study showed that it did not, but it was that was based on the standard. The most common things you look at is volume of traffic and times of days and things. There is some leeway when you talk about site distance problems or other visibility and geometric problems. I think that's where Bowman was going. Bowman requested that the applicant look at that closer. The township could have Bowman look at it closer, but for it to be quote unquote enforceable four-way stop sign, it needs to meet, some level of warrants from the PennDOT standard.
Right.
So, there's not an unwillingness to put in the four-way stop. It's really, I think, Zach, fair. It's the cost of doing a study. If there's an issue, we understand that, PennDOT has its requirements, but if there's any latitude, that's something we would certainly revisit post-construction. Once we know the building's in, you can observe traffic patterns. Hopefully by that time the Wawa's in, and we'll know what the real situation is there.
How do we get that in writing?
I think that would be part of the land development agreement. So it'd be recorded against property and bind us as the developer.
As far as going through the review later, I don't think that's necessary. I think, we hit everything pretty hard last time. And the outstanding issue was the road widening, I believe. Were there any other issues that we had that you're aware of?
Yeah, so since we started this discussion quite a while ago, we've always been assuming that Wawa is going to be there. What if it's not? What if they change their minds, they delay the project? I've driven by there a couple times on their property. There's an excavator that's been sitting there, not doing much. On their website, when we talk about future stores, they don't list it. We know they're expanding in the south, they're expanding in the Midwest, middle part of the state. What if they change their plans and there's no Wawa there by the time you're ready to go? What happens?
So, and Zach, how long is your build cycle once you start construction?
12 months.
12 months. So within the next 12 months, we'll know if Wawa is going to start. If there's no Wawa prior to our opening, what the township will have is a fully improved cartway on Meeting House down to where the Wawa intersection or the Wawa improvements are supposed to start. So, and for a time, less traffic because there's not a Wawa there. I think you're getting though to a specific issue or question.
Yeah, in one case, we're hoping there's a Wawa, but if there's not, we're crossing our fingers and hoping for it. I think from the township standpoint, we need something more definitive than that. It says either that you can't begin operation until that road is widened, either by Wawa or by the township or by you. Because you can't have a 24-foot cartway that condenses down to 20 feet for a period of time and then goes to an intersection with like turning lanes. That's not.
Is your traffic study hinging on the Wawa improvements?
So I don't know that it's hinging on the Wawa improvements at all.
The road improvements are in support of the waiver request for not improving Old State Road. So the traffic study did not require any improvements north of our site. Operationally, it's better for everybody, but the basis as to why we offered that was because we're seeking a waiver for improvements to Old State Road.
Right.
And to offset the fee in lieu, we're offering to give you an equivalent value of road improvements. And that works out that from here to Wawa, widening to 24 feet is equivalent to what we're waiving on Old State.
Yeah, and those improvements are off-site. And to Alex's point, instead of us putting sidewalk in, improving Old State Road, we're closing a gap. And this is the only logical opportunity for the township to have the gap from Old State Road to the Wawa improvements. if Wawa doesn't do something there, I would have a hard time thinking that another commercial developer wouldn't come in and seek some sort of amended approval. But when, I don't know. And, you know, there's not a lot of corners that have zoning for commercial development.
And I can't guarantee anything, but Wawa is pursuing their final approvals and agreements. And to our knowledge, you know, the best of our knowledge, they're moving forward with the project. They have the traffic signal's now been issued. They essentially have all their permits in place. It's just a matter of getting their agreements in place and getting the work started.
That being the case, I still think it's best that we document somewhere that
Understand?
if that project gets delayed or gets canceled, that it then falls on the township to widen that road to 24 feet so that we don't create a traffic hazard for vehicles passing in each direction.
I mean, I think the township always has the option of doing road improvements in accordance with whatever their annual road improvement plan and budget are. I won't speak to the township, and Steve, feel free to tell me to shut up. But if there is an opportunity to have a private developer do something, most municipalities will wait that out. And again, to Alex's point, our traffic study, it's the improvements to this road are unrelated to the traffic study. It's really in lieu of waivers and fee in lieu of and wanting to improve the area around your property. Is that fair, Zach?
Well, you work with the township. The township told me that's what they wanted.
I understand.
I've done it along Shelley's driveway.
Was
That
it-
wouldn't do good for anybody.
I was the township, the supervisor, me, I was sitting right behind you last month, and we both heard Mr. Kaiser's passion about large vehicular traffic
Yep.
safety, and that just prompted the question more. You know, he's also fiscally frugal, that, you know, if that project doesn't go, we're creating a traffic hazard. essentially. And we are creating a traffic hazard for some period of time, for some distance, until the road is widened sufficiently to have large vehicles traversing in either direction between State Road and Old State Road.
Well,
The trucks can't fit on the road as it is today. I don't know that I agree that we are creating a traffic. If Wawa doesn't get built, 2 trucks can fit side by side on a 20-foot road. It is significantly tighter than a 24-foot road. Everyone here will agree that a 24-foot road is better, but I do not necessarily agree with the position that the road can't function in the size it is today. Everybody wants a 24-foot road. There are 10-foot wide lanes all over the state of Pennsylvania, all over Bucks County, all over Montgomery County. So I do agree, but I think to our point, you know, our waiver offset and the agreement with the township was between Wawa and ours driveway, and the cost study showed that that is the equivalent value of the fee in lieu for the waivers. So I think it's to everyone's benefit that the signal get installed, Wawa get built, and the road gets widened. But if there is a gap between that, I don't know that I agree with the position that the roads can't be used and there's a traffic safety issue. It's obviously much tighter. The benefit is the pinch point through the barns will be the 24-foot. So that will be improved under this plan, no matter what. So when we get north of that, though the road's narrower, we're not dealing with the pinch point through the barns. So I recognize the concern, but I don't know that it's an unusable roadway without the Wawa being built.
And our road improvements will be done during our construction. And Wawa does have a fairly significantly shorter build cycle, in the neighborhood of 8 to 9 months from when they start to when they hope to open. Wawa would like it to be shorter. But so I think provided Wawa is proceeding diligently, I don't know that there's going to be a gap, if any. And if there is, I would think it would not be significant.
Always looking for the dark cloud around the silver lining.
I understand.
You hope for the best and plan for the worst.
Sure.
And so the worst case situation that I could think of in this case is Wawa says, we're going to put you on the 3-year plan or the 5-year plan, or we're going to build someplace else. And, we've got this gap that at least we have to recognize that there's a gap there, that the assumption that you're ready to go, Wawa's already done, I think is not 100% certain at this point. Just acknowledging that so everyone knows that there's a risk there.
Yeah, and I wouldn't disagree that we can't be 100% certain as to Wawa.
How about the intersection of State and Meeting House? If say the Wawa project wasn't on the table, would you have been required to do anything on that corner?
The original traffic study analyzed that scenario. They had the build and no build with and without Wawa.
Okay.
And our study or our development does not trigger the Wawa improvement. So there is a study of no traffic signal, no Wawa traffic, but our site is built and the study found no improvements needed. So should that signal not be built, our traffic study covers that scenario and that scenario meets the requirements.
Thank you. All right. Where were we?
And sorry, I don't recall if the waivers were voted upon last time, but we do have an amended waiver letter.
They were approved, or we voted to recommend. I did see that you made an amendment to them.
Yeah, it would be the first one about Old State Road on the revised February 27, 2025 letter.
I believe that was verbally amended in the meeting that we discussed at the last meeting. Our original waiver was for widening sidewalk and curb along Old State. Steve noted during the last planning commission meeting that we also have to get a waiver from overlaying Old State Road. So we discussed that at the meeting and I believe it was voted. We just formally added it to the letter because it was discussed at the last planning commission meeting.
Okay, so how do we formally deal with that?
And I think my recollection was the vote included that with a verbal amendment during the meeting, but
This is during our meeting or the supervisor's meeting?
the planning commission.
Okay.
If even acceptance of the just something in the motion, accepting the waiver letter as amended, just to make sure we have all of our I's dotted and T's crossed
Right.
when we return to the supervisors. And sorry to interrupt you.
No, I would recommend you get reference to the new letter.
Is that 6A? In the February 26th letter?
Are we talking about the wind letter?
Yeah.
That-
We don't have that other letter.
7.
Six
Oh,
lists
I see.
the
Okay.
original waiver.
6A was the original, then 7 was the
Additional.
The addition.
addition. Okay.
So we need to revise the waiver request approval or approval recommendation?
Yeah.
What do you want to make that motion?
I'll make that motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Opposed.
You're opposed? Okay. 1 nay. All right, what else do we have?
It's the final approval because we had received preliminary and the supervisors had asked us to come back.
Right.
Provided the planning commission supports final approval, they will give us a resolution for conditional preliminary final approval.
Steve, what do we have outstanding yet? Any outside approval or anything?
Unfortunately, the planning module, I saw that letter today. But again, it's public facility, so it'll get approved.
So you're looking for
And you're-
conditional final?
Your NPDS permit you received, right?
MPDS was issued.
Yeah.
We're working SEPTA we're doing a pipe crossing of SEPTA. So that is working through the letters being drafted through the technical review is done. It's being processed administratively. We're working through the insurance certificates with the railroad liability insurance. So that's holding that up, but that's ready to be issued upon receipt of the insurance cert and the drafting. As noted, we got our MPDS permit. The Act 537 is at DEP. We got a letter this morning. We're responding this week. We hope to see that letter, that approval, and a week or two. And then the wetland permit is ready to be issued, but they can't issue it until the 537 is approved. So a lot is contingent on this 537 agreement. And then Telford Borough Authority, we need to get their formal approval, but they wanted a letter from the fire marshal blessing the fire hydrant location, which we got last night. So we'll put all those documents into Telford Borough Authority this week. And that was really the last comment in their letter to bless the water line extension. So
There's no permits that'll impact changes to the
yeah,
plan.
nothing would change the technical plan. Everything's administrative at this point.
Okay. Any public comment?
That 25 foot's gonna go all the way down to your entrance?
What's your name and address?
I'm sorry, Dwayne Ballmer with 3000 Meeting House Road with Penn Valley Gas. The 25 feet goes all the way down to the entrance,
We're talking about from the road widening.
road widening, yeah.
Yeah, so there's two different standards that come into play. So from the Wawa driveway to the intersection of Old State Meeting House, we're going from the existing 20-foot to the 24-foot. That was an off-site improvement requested and agreed to offset not improving Old State Road since it's basically a private drive at this point. On our frontage, we fall under a different standard, which is the subdivision land development code provisions. And that we're widening our half of the road to 14-foot wide, which is half of the code standard for a roadway. So this road is 24-foot total width, 4 foot of widening. And this side, we do a half width widening for our frontage to 14-foot from the center line all the way across.
So we're gonna end up with the plus or minus a 24-foot road.
Yeah, it's the same thing. We're adding 4 foot or
Yeah.
14-foot wide.
Okay.
It almost results in the same width.
So let's do it two different ways, but effectively it'll be 24-foot wide.
Okay,
plus or minus
that's
the
just, I
whole-
wanted clarity because I wasn't sure what was happening on that road. So that's going to be 24 foot as well.
Yeah, once again, I believe it's 9 to 10 foot on the west lane. We're widening 14, so it's probably 23.5 to 24 on our portion and then 24 foot north.
Because that is a pinch point for sure, coming down that driveway, coming down that hill there towards,
But we're obligated by the code to widen our frontage, so this will have new curb and 14-foot lane, and then the westbound side is existing as a 10-foot. So as Steve noted,
Yeah.
plus or minus 24 with curbing, and then when we go north, we're also widening 24.
okay. No, I didn't hear that in the statement. So, and I wasn't here the last time. So the other thing, just a comment, without that road being widened the rest of the way down to Meeting House would be a mistake. If I'm assuming it's going to happen. So, but that corner as it currently sits there with tractor trailers, because I drive tractor trailer, you can't make a right out of Meeting House on the state road without picking up most of the left-hand lane. So that's to me is a must. Someone must address that, which they are with Wawa. So I'm assuming that'll happen, but I appreciated your concern because could be an issue if that all falls apart, just from my perspective. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other public comment? All right. So, you want to move forward here? Someone make a motion?
One more question. Where do we land on the 4-way stop, and is there a way to get that without the study? You had asked about putting something in writing.
Right.
Is that how we're gonna handle that?
Ask the engineer.
If you're comfortable with their answer of they're not gonna do a study, but they're willing to install the signs if it's determined by the township, you just add that as a condition
All right.
in your recommendation.
I'm fine with that.
I am too. That was the one thing that kind of stood out to me is I think it could benefit from a 4-way stop right there.
Anyone else? All right. Someone want to make a motion?
Make a motion to recommend conditional preliminary finals.
Final.
Well, it's conditional based upon, conditional final, excuse me, conditional final approval of the plan.
In a second.
I'll second it.
Any discussion? Hearing
Matt.
none. Pardon me?
That contains the 4-way stop condition.
Yes. Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Opposed?
Okay, motion carries.
All right.
Thank
Thank you for your time this evening.
Have a good night.
You too. Thank you. Thanks, Steve.
All right, next on the agenda is TNGMD.
Good evening. Mike Russick, here, MSR Engineering, representing Dave Nice. Dave wasn't able to make it tonight. He's got an out-of-county project he's been working on, and with this nice weather, they're now in overdrive to get things ramped up again. Regardless, there are 3 reviews that haven't come back yet. I believe there is a submission to the fire service for the fire department. We don't have Bucks County Planning Commission yet, and it was the third one. The traffic study review hasn't come back yet. So my purpose here tonight is really just to stick our toe in the water, get you familiar with the plan, and then go back and wait for those other reviews to come in, and then look at handling and doing as much as we can in one shot, coming back and getting things cleaned up, hopefully for preliminary approval. There are some major talking points that I want to go over tonight. I'll start off basically explaining the general project. The property is on the southwest side of Bethlehem Pike, just I don't know if this is going to work on there or not.
There should be one on the podium.
Yeah, the red doesn't work.
There's a special
We
one.
need green, we need a special one. Right here is Weichel Road. Immediately to the northwest of the property is Trademark. Trademark Landscape, I believe, has a landscape business here. And then immediately north of them is the Mental Health Gym and Fitness. Nobody across the street. This is all vacant land across the street. And down to the south is the self-storage facility that I'm not, the name eludes me, but there's a self-storage facility that's located immediately to the south. The plan that's up here right now is the existing features plan. The site is very complex with respect to natural resources. Right now, the site is accessed by a single maintenance driveway entrance, which we had received a PennDOT approval for, just to get improvement for maintenance access to the property. Just a clarification, I believe Steve's letter indicated that we had a permit for an HOP for the proposed site entrance. That's not part of our current submission. We obviously have to process that. The permit that we do have in hand was just for this site entrance for maintenance access into the property. Entire site is primarily wooded. There is a large contingency of wetlands that sit in the back southwest corner. And also there is a actual stream channel that has been flagged and begins about centrally along the northern property line and works its way down through the property to the southwest, leaves the property in the southwest corner. That is waters of the Commonwealth. These are flagged wetlands. VW Consultants is the environmental consultant on the project. One of the aspects with respect to the existing wetlands, as brought up in Steve's letter, is we will be getting an Army Corps jurisdictional determination, which will basically lock those in as being official boundaries for those features. Along with that, the stream, I show riparian buffers, and also we show riparian buffers around the wetlands themselves. So when running through the site capacity calculations, there's a lot of overlap between woodlands, wetlands, riparian buffers. One of the things that Steve had asked in the site capacity calculations is just to create a chart that our site capacity calculations has everything bulked together, but just to have a chart that kind of separates out where the overlaps are at for clarification. If you can move on to the next slide, we'll get to the proposed site plan. So what Dave proposes here is we're going to have an improved site entrance that would be designed as a low volume driveway, but we are oversizing all the dimensions for tractor trailer egress and exit from the property. When you come into the site, if you go to the left or to the south, there will be a 20 paved parking area. If you stay to the right when you come in, there will be a contingency of storage bins similar to what you see on the northern property for Trademark Landscape. These will be primarily for Dave is a full service site contractor. So he wants to take advantage of having this property as his home office space. Those bins will be for storage of all types of landscape materials that he would use for construction, stone, mulch, whatever he would need for his operations.
So
and
that's
his
not for
contracts.
retail then.
No, well, he would sell to public, but it would be delivery. In other words, if somebody called him and said, it's just like like when I call, there's for topsoil or something.
Right.
So whoever would be the hauler would sell to a hauler coming in.
There won't
for
be
that
customers
material.
coming in to fill their truck.
Not a retail, no. It would any public sale would be delivery from the facility.
Right.
He would also sell to other contractors, and plus he would also use this primarily for his own contracting business as a materials source. Getting into the actual improvements for the building, it's basically the area covered by the stone parking, staging for equipment, and the bin storage. It's about 2.5 acres. In the back, he'll have his main shop building, a 10,000 square foot building. That is primarily, there will be a small office space in there, but that's primarily for the equipment repairs, maintenance. If you've driven by the site now, you could see he's got quite a large contingency that he had to move it someplace. And so since this now is going to be his home base, he's using it in there based on, we were under a lot of pressure from the township to get something submitted because he needed some place to go. And at the same time, we recognized the fact that we had to get the plan submitted to move him along.
So is he moving the operation up from his current spot there?
Yeah, well, if you saw the equipment that he's got on there, he can't manage that at his current location down the street.
Right.
That there I am in the process of starting to clean that up because that's just been sitting around forever, way too long. I'd be the first one to tell you too. It's been sitting around way too long. He will probably keep that shop for smaller work items, like if he's got to work on fleet vehicles,
Right.
pickups, utility trucks. But there's no way he can handle the larger equipment there.
Right.
So the other building up here, which would be a future building, this 4,000 square foot, this would primarily be for undercover parking of fleet vehicles, utility trucks, pickups, basically just a glorified weather cover for the vehicles. If you want to go, the area over here for future expansion, we identified as a potential future phase. And again, that future expansion would be done as part of his growth, more equipment, larger vehicles, larger trucks, haulers, excavators. He needs a place to park this equipment. With respect to the natural resources, the wetlands are being 100% protected. Wetland buffers are being 100% protected. There's a floodway I have delineated through here that is being 100% protected. The floodway that I have shown is actually a DEP default boundary. When you don't have a floodplain study, DEP automatically takes jurisdiction over 50 feet of each side of the stream. So we're protecting that. The only thing that is in need of clarification is the riparian buffer itself that's required by the township cuts the corner up here of the existing area of fill that pre-existed him purchasing the property. This property was filled, I don't know what the history was. Greg, if he was here, Mr. Lippincott, he'd probably be able to give a better history. I'm not familiar with the total history, but over the years, the property has been filled. The top of the embankment of the current fill line follows this red swale area here that will, at some point in the future, become a stormwater management conveyance swale. That's about where the top of bank is right now. There's no proposed encroachment or filling beyond what is currently there. So the question comes up is, Steve had made the comment that we are showing this encroachment and that the ordinance requires riparian buffers to be protected, preserved, or restored. So the question is, because this is a pre-existing encroachment, I'm not exactly sure what the planning commission's viewpoint is on us being able to continue to use that as an existing encroachment, or if we're going to have to back off and basically preserve that area as it exists.
Are you showing a wall though, Mike, extended in there?
No, there's
At least that's what it looked like. to me.
yeah,
Not
we
that
have
wall down
we have the
along
bin
that
blocks
swale.
down here.
Yeah.
No, this here would be at the top of bank. We're basically using bin blocks along the top of bank as a barrier for protection, so that anybody driving through with a truck, guide rail, because if you saw the size of the equipment he has in there, guide rail is not going to do a thing if somebody's driving around. So we're using the 2 foot high bin blocks as a barrier, so that that top of bank is clearly protected from any vehicles that may drift or while they're driving. They have a clear visible barrier to stay away from that bank. Yeah, but there's no retaining wall or anything.
All right. Well, I misinterpreted as that barrier as a wall.
So I wasn't sure what the policy has been, or if there is any policy on if there's an existing encroachment and that
We've
encroachment.
had very few projects with a riparian buffer. That was
Okay.
that came into play. Let's put it
Okay.
that way. I'm looking at it two ways. One, I'm not sure what DEP will say with your NPDS permit. I'm just trying to envision if it was any other disturbance, we would allow it. Typically, we would allow it to remain, but you couldn't improve it. It's a question of whether you're making it better or not. And that's why I said it. It flagged me. I flagged it when I saw that barrier in there. It's like, well, now you're changing. You might have filled it in, but you didn't have any structures or anything there.
Okay.
So that would be.
This in your review letter?
Yes, this would be item
E2E. 2F, I'm sorry.
2F, yes.
At the top of the second page.
So other than that, we're not doing any other encroachments into anything that's natural or undisturbed or pristine. One thing I would like to point out also is if you look at the riparian buffer, that boundary, if you map it, goes up onto Trademark's property, and they're technically been in it for years also.
We don't want to talk about Trademark's
Okay.
property. They have their own list of problems with the township. Just worry about your own.
So not that I would,
Yeah, I
What
would be
for
more
next-
concerned with the quote unquote improvement in that area.
Yeah.
If it's existing, it's existing, but if you're gonna build something, and I think that something means almost anything.
so would it be
It's a
basically
concern.
just backing out and just leaving it as is and letting it continue? I mean, basically what we would do is just let it continue to naturalize, even though it's on a major fill encroachment.
Right.
It's about all we could propose at this point.
But that,
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
probably best case, right?
Yeah, that's the best case. And I'm not sure that DEP won't have some comment
Yeah.
on it.
Well, is for, just to digress here for a second, as far as a DEP would be involved with the NPDES permit, this would be a general permit. And because this is, not an exceptional value or high quality watershed, there's no mandatory requirement for the buffering from DEP. So I don't know that either way. The fact that we're showing one, they'd be thrilled with. The fact of whether it's actually required or not would be.
I guess I'm saying it in light of if they have something to say,
Right.
you're going to have to deal with.
Right,
their
we're gonna have to
comment.
deal with it. But it's a small item. We're just trying to squeeze as much as we can out of use of the property, and so I thought it was worth a try. If you could, let me see here. Let me just hit on just the important things. As far as entrance and improvements along Bethlehem Pike, if you can go to the next drawing. Nope. There was one before that. No, go back. Yeah, hit that one right there. Back one, right there. So as far as stormwater management, we haven't dived into the stormwater management yet. This is going to be a complicated NPDES permit. The NPDES permits are very driven by site layout and drainage areas. The problem with trying to start an NPDES permit at this point is if I had a full NPDES permit package prepared and I have an amendment such as I'm backing out something, that cascades through the whole permit package. So the intent here is to get all of the main planning issues and layout comments resolved so that when I start the NPDES permit, there's a less likelihood of something changing that could just throw the whole permit package into chaos. But what I did was, as far as a stormwater basin, I used a lot of rule of thumbs by NPDES permitting. There are drainage area ratios, impervious surface area ratios to facilities. So because of the extent of proposed impervious surface, we do have a relatively large basin feature that we are tucking in behind the main building back in the southern corner of the property. One of the things that we're going to be dealing with is right now, all of the runoff from Bethlehem Pike as it exists sheets off the highway and sheets across this plateau area down into the back area where all the features are at. When I go to do a stormwater management basin design, because we have limitations on drainage area ratios and impervious surface ratios, this is an existing drainage feature through the property. I have to get past this facility because it'll cause a lot of problems with meeting those ratios. And plus right now it's an existing impervious surface that's a pass through. So what we're going to propose to do as far as improvements, very similar to what PennDOT required of Dave's property down the street. We're going to do a major drainage swale improvement along the front. And we're going to bring that drainage swale improvement down as far as we can to a point where we can pick it up so that all the runoff from Bethlehem Pike is being picked up. We have the drainage improvement along the highway, get that water down around the basin, bypassing our stormwater facilities and basically discharge it with a level spreader back to the downstream tributary. That'll all be worked into the stormwater management planning for this once we get to a point of knowing that we're looking good as far as general layout and the modifications to the layout for any comment that you would have. So all of that, the HOP would be for the driveway entrances designed, and this entrance design was done with the recommendations and guidance of Horner and Canner, who is the traffic engineer for the project. And that HOP would also include these drainage improvements to get the drainage along the shoulder improved to a point where the water is just not coming off and either coming straight onto his property or just sitting along the shoulder. So that kind of just covers that general scope. One of the things that Steve brought up was the type 4 and type 5 buffers. One of the answers that he actually now provided within the review is we were looking at preserving to the north of the entrance as much of the existing vegetation that is here along the highway now. This vegetation, the question was whether or not it would be deemed suitable enough to act as the existing buffer. Steve went out, he looked, said, no, it's not, isn't going to make it. So we will advance that design with the required fencing, shrubbery. One of the things that we wanted to question was visibility and basically security for the property, because with that fencing up, we're basically going to be completely blocking any visibility for security to the property. I'm not sure if a request to defer that would have to be through a zoning variance for that, or if there's any ability or flexibility that the township has or the supervisors have over the buffers for these applications.
The only flexibility you have is whether or not you consider existing vegetation adequate. What I was looking at here, this isn't just a buffer of, residential next to commercial or something. This is storage yards, which require, more screening and fencing, which isn't included in some of the other buffers.
Right.
So yeah, to eliminate the fence, I don't think that's a planning issue that could be waived. Whether or not there's,
I mean, I stopped and looked at the existing vegetation on my way in tonight. It's a little sparse. It's a little sparse, and you probably have more than a handful of ash trees in there.
That's going to end up coming down.
in the middle of summer may
Okay.
not be, may be fairly well screened, but it's also going to be tighter. By the time they do the construction, it may not be as wide of existing vegetation.
Yeah, yeah. The other
Fair
aspect
enough.
here is because of where it's located. I mean, it's out in the middle of nowhere along Bethlehem Pike. You have the user to the north of us that has nothing. Again, he could have been there forever also and under pre-existing nonconformities. But there aren't any types of residential uses or large developments that are in immediate proximity that would be viewing this. I'll talk to Dave. I don't know whether he wants to pursue a variance or not. I guess a variance request would be probably the only thing that we would bringing up these points as points of argument to try to alleviate the necessity of a fence. And again, it's just the site's going to be completely blocked off from view, any view from the street, and any patrol, anything, unless they go into the property. There's not going to be any view.
Yeah,
from
I mean,
the
there may
original
be some leeway that, when you're near the entrance, that doesn't have to be, stockade fence across the entrance or
Right.
where some of the other buildings are. I'm saying there might be some
Okay.
ability that there could be areas that you could see in,
Okay.
but I think the ordinance clearly
We'll work
states-
with it. And we'll just do the best we can and come up with something that would be compliant, hopefully achieve both goals. So, all right. I spoke about the improvements with respect to waivers. We were the waivers were street tree. We're gonna have street trees where replacements. We'll look out there where there's ash. Maybe we just take the ash down and put a street tree, and that's where we know we're gonna lose something anyway. With respect to the general improvements, curb, sidewalk, cartway widening, the curb and cartway widening, again, that falls back to his other site. We originally, and this is just going from experience with this other property, there was curb and widening required down there. We went into PennDOT with a plan, had the curb and widening on it, and PennDOT said, no. They said they don't want the restriction of the water that close to the shoulder. They directed us to then do the swale design, which gets everything away from the street and everything away from the edge of their shoulder. It was a vast improvement. And then that water actually ends up going down through the Royanne Diner, which was an extra bonus. So that actually Royanne was happy that happened. They used to have a horrible icing problem across the front of their property, but that translated to this project. I would anticipate that if I went into PennDOT with curb and widening on it, I would expect the same response from them saying, remove it and go full drainage swale that we're looking at proposing. Again, that kills two birds with one stone. We get the drainage improvement along the street, and I get that water bypassed beyond our stormwater management.
If I remember correctly, as with every other development, the developer's given where it's not a hard, determination that we need curb and sidewalk. Developers given the option or contribution in lieu of doing a curb and sidewalk. At the time, Mr. Nice did not want to give a contribution to the township and chose to submit a plan with curb and sidewalk on it. It went to PennDOT. We've never seen it again. So that's a whole nother thing to be resolved. But I don't disagree with Mike that PennDOT probably doesn't want curb on that section of Bethlehem Pike. Independent of, some large project that installed storm sewer up and down the road. And that's
They want to get the drainage away from the road, not trap it along the edge of along the shoulder.
And we've looked at some of the other projects along Old Bethlehem Pike. Essentially, the width of the road with the shoulder is wider than our minimum widening. That's really not a requirement, or I could say the roadway meets the road width requirements under our standards. So it's really curb and sidewalk that.
So what we'll do is we'll get an improvement on the plans back to Steve and back to you for reconsideration of basically outlining what you're anticipate to see on a future plan. The only with respect to waivers, and I'm just throwing this out as a question. If PennDOT, if the township has a requirement for curb and sidewalk, but PennDOT says, no, we don't want it, is that really a waiver?
Yeah.
Because you're not really waiving it. They're just saying you can't do it.
I tend to think the board will consider that a waiver.
We'll broach this with the board, but the ordinance does have a caveat in there that says for an arterial or for this road classification, there's an asterisk in the ordinance. It says at the per improvements per discretion of PennDOT. It's like it just takes it right out of the chart. If you go below, it has for widening requirements and curb requirements. You get to this road classification, there's nothing there in the ordinance. It basically says to PennDOT's discretion. So that's why I'm questioning it as far as whether it's a waiver or not, because the ordinance doesn't even give it as an option. It says it's up to PennDOT. But we can broach that at a future point. We'll get the improvements on the plan. And we'll revisit the request accordingly.
Essentially show us what is being proposed, because the township has accepted alternates, let's say, to, curb and storm sewer with other improvements on another property. And that's, I don't want to call it a trade-off, but, just alternate. We agreed to an alternate to the standard type of improvement.
Okay.
So if we have all the information, then we could make a better.
And that's why I said we'll resubmit for Steve's review and comment, and then reapproach it. It's going down. I think the only other question I had, let me just double check here. That's because I'm kind of, regarding the parking, just to give you an idea on where we came up with the 20 spaces, we will do the calculation required by the ordinance, but I believe what we're showing these 20 spaces will add, Stephen mentioned about adding, it's required federally, an ADA parking space down here near the shop. These right now, Dave, and this fluctuates seasonally, but right now he has 12 full-time employees. So with the 12 employees, that'll give us eight spaces shy for any visitors or anything like that. But we will provide the calculations to show that the 20 is more than adequate. But just to give you an idea of where we came up with the 20, it was based on what he currently employs.
On that one, though, you had there, Steve, the second part of paragraph 3 was about regulation of the PC2 zoning. District required parking space to be located to the rear or side of proposed buildings.
Mm-hmm.
So those being out in the front, is that if the buffer is good enough? I mean, is that,
especially if we fence
how
it?
does that work? Is that allowable if there's a buffer there, or you do it?
Yeah, and the problem is it's in the zoning regulations for PC2, which makes it less flexible. Now, for what it's worth, that surely wasn't envisioned for contractor services use as much as probably it was envisioned for retail or an office use.
Yeah, see the building back here, I mean, this is, you know, it's gonna be heavy equipment maintenance. And so to try to put parking back there and then have ukes running around and track hose.
Could you do something as little as flipping the parking from essentially fronting on Bethel Pike to fronting to the backside? Like where the swale and bin block wall would
Back
be.
in here somewhere?
Yeah.
Yeah, we can look at that.
I mean, I think you could make an interpretation that that's not in the front now, that's in the
Yeah.
rear.
Right.
of
Yeah, the only
storage
advantage we had up here was I was having this as a paved area, so this was contiguous with the
Yeah.
entrance.
No, I understand.
That would be, it would be disjointed, but
I would say take a look at something like that. I think that would be a lot easier for us to say that it meets the ordinance if it wasn't right against the right of way, or-
okay.
parallel to the right of way. Because again, it's in the zoning ordinance, it's not a subdivision requirement.
And what does that, what does that section say again? Just so I know. Do you have it in front of you or not? I don't know if you have it.
Oh, I just have what I summarized.
That's okay. Let me look at it real quick.
It's number 3.
Yeah, direct parking would be located to the rear side of proposed buildings. It's in some general regulations within the PC2 ZIT district in the zoning ordinance, some general design guidelines in the PC2 section.
Z, zoning ordinance, section 450-1000.
Yeah,
C.
it's not in the contractor services section. It's in the actual PC2 zoning district, right?
Oh. To be located to the rear. Okay. Well, we'll,
And I'm not, I mean, they could look at it because I'm not sure that it doesn't say mostly to the rear sides, or if, it gives you some leeway that you could have some parking out front, and if you move some spaces somewhere else next to the buildings.
yeah. Okay, I'll look at with Dave and we'll see what we can come up with to eliminate that in the front.
And I
there then.
understand why you have it there.
Yeah.
Because technically it's a problem.
Okay. That part. Okay, so moving on, we talked about the buffers. As far as impervious surfaces, and I'll just touch on some of these real quick. Impervious surface calculations, I have the total that's actually in the site capacity calculations, but I think what Steve is asking for is a summary chart. I do have the individual areas listed, but I'll put it in chart form that corresponds to the bulk area that is listed.
Yeah, and on one of the plans that are going to be recorded.
Yeah, so then that way he's not searching all over for it. It's right there. That's fine. So waiting for the traffic. HOP, talked about that. Talked about street improvements, landscaping. Okay. With respect to the shading requirements, parking lot trees, I have a calculation on one of the detailed plans. I think it's like something, if you take 35% of the total parking area, storage area, impervious surface, it was like 54 deciduous trees and I don't know, it was like 20 other trees. On the landscape plans, I found a spot for all those trees on the property. However, they're not necessarily providing the 100%, 35% shading. And I don't know if the landscape plan was one of the plans that you had. I was hoping it was one of them that shows the trees. Yeah, okay. You can leave that one there. That one actually kind of illustrates. I lined the areas as much as possible with the trees around the perimeter of these large areas. It's going to be really hard to create planting islands here, again, because of what we're dealing with as far as vehicle size, track hose, large hauling vehicles. So I have the required number of trees that would cover 35%. So what I'll do is what Steve asked for, he asked for an actual calculation of what percentage I am achieving. I'll provide that for additional comment and then revisit this to see if that's sufficient in this situation, because of the number of trees we're providing meets the 35% requirement, just that I'm spacing them the best I can.
Right. As long as we can have the numbers as background.
Yeah.
The planning commission has agreed on
So,
different alternates
okay.
and putting it elsewhere on the site. if
So
that seems
I'll
appropriate.
provide a calculation that shows what percentage of shading we're actually achieving. And then I'll revisit it accordingly with the board. The reforestation. If you look at again, this is, I think, just an accounting problem. If you look at the Natural Resource Protection Standard calculations, when you go down to the amount of woodlands being preserved, it's coming up to a net site area of 11%, but I have a tremendous amount of overlap. In other words, I have area, and actually I'm going to be backing out. Steve had indicated that was it the riparian buffer? The riparian buffer is not, is it the wetland buffer or the riparian
The
buffer?
repairing buffer is does not have to be included in the zoning site capacity.
Okay. So I have some area there that would actually, that if when I revisit it, that I have in there that is not to be counted in there, which is going to bring my number up. Plus, I have a tremendous amount of area down here that's riparian buffer and wetlands that's also woodland. So what I'll do is I will prepare a chart basically clarifying total woodland area, and then out of that woodland area, subcategories, so that he can see where these numbers are coming from. All the numbers are on the plan. It's just that he's not going to sit there and try to figure out where all the numbers are coming from. So I will provide a chart that explains all that for him to review, and then to see if he concurs that we are actually meeting the 20%. It's just that it's being eaten up by overlap. Simply that. Just a real quick note. Again, stormwater management, erosion control, that's going to be all part of the NPDES permit planning. I have changes here right now that are going to end up affecting an application. Lighting right now, we're going to have just general building lighting, and he will have some security lighting up front. We'll show that and then show compliance with the ordinance zoning for glare and for general illumination. Real quick note, this was already reviewed by DEP for sewage facilities. They determined planning modules were not required for this site. I have all kinds of notes on the record plan indicating what the calculations are based on, the reference to the DEP letter. So all that information is on the recorded plan with respect to number of employees that are going to be involved at the site. Floor drain. He's not going to have floor drains in the building. Just as a side note, in case you're we're wondering about that. Steve had a comment here about floor drains being especially regulated, especially in a case like this. The building won't have any floor drains. Then there's other comments about construction permits for sewage system and for the well, ultimate right-of-way dedication, monumentation, all pretty much standard financial security agreement. And then he's got a engineering drafting detail memo that I'll address directly with Steve. So those are pretty much the primary planning items that I wanted to review. I don't know if there's any questions you have, or if there's anything I didn't cover.
Anything you got, Steve?
No. No, I think we covered the larger
The big picture, yeah. So we'll wait on the other reviews. I'll start revisiting these items and doing all the accounting of the different charts and things that Steve needs. Show the improvements with the drainage, and go from there. Resubmit.
All right. Sounds good.
Thank you.
Okay, all right, thanks a lot.
Thank you. Have a good night. All right, so next on the agenda is the review of the electronic sign ordinance amendment. Everybody get a chance to look at that?
Yes.
So we weren't allowed to put houses of worship as an
Internet
exemption.
veterans organizations. So what do we do with that, with existing ones? They just get like grandfathered in somehow, or we just don't worry about it, or new ones would apply for a variance or something? I mean, like if another church wanted to do it somewhere.
And if another church wants to do it, they would need a variance. The existing ones, I would guess will be considered existing non-conforming.
Right.
We'd have to ask the zoning office.
Gotcha.
There has been no complaint so far. I don't imagine much will
They
be done.
could look for relief some
Yeah.
way, so.
I can't imagine it would be hard to get.
Yeah, so any questions on this?
I like the two flowering trees on the sides. And then you can't get the two, you need 4 shrubs. As written by the shrubber.
Harry was hell bent on getting some vegetation.
What kind of flowering trees do we like? Magnolias or?
We have a list in here.
Okay. All right.
Is it the electronic sign tree selection?
No, we always,
Approved electronic flowering, yeah, electronic sign flowering tree list.
revert back to the subdivision ordinance for everything.
All right, so does anyone have any questions on this? Everything is as we discussed minus our recommendations.
Yep, minus everything we suggest.
All right, so are they looking for a recommendation here
Yes.
from us? All right, so anyone want to make a motion?
I'll make said motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Thank you. All right, so that was our old business. New business.
Actually, with regard to old business, one thing real quick, I should probably brought it up earlier, but the pending approvals on the 13 is select properties for the zoning hearing board meeting on the 12/4 and a written, refer the written decision on 1/15. That would have been after our January meeting. We didn't have a February meeting.
Yeah, which one was that? I didn't even put that list.
Number 13, select properties, a sewage pump station.
Oh.
On Mountain View. So what happened like with all that? Was that the 15th? Was that the written decision?
That was a written decision for the pump station, to permit the pump station.
To permit it.
Yeah.
So it passed, it went through.
Yeah. Now, what you are also going to, we reviewed it once, they pulled themselves from the agenda, that's actually subdividing that Fisher property to leave a piece for Mr. Fisher and create the piece that the treatment plan is going to be on.
That's 15, the Fisher track.
Yeah.
Treatment plant or pumping station?
That's my bad. It's a pumping station. I keep calling it a treatment plant. It is not a treatment plant. Only a pumping station. They revised that plan, so we'll see them back. I don't know what their agreement is with Mr. Fisher, but they're proceeding with separating off his house from the rest of the whole Lawn Avenue, the large subdivision, instead of doing it as part of the large subdivision.
Wasn't Select supposed to be on the zoning hearing for the property out toward,
The ridge, the one that was.
Yeah.
Because there's no power or something.
is that what it is?
I don't remember when the zoning hearing was scheduled for that. Yeah.
And it got canceled because there's no power, right? Yeah. Because people were all upset that it got canceled, that somehow we're.
Came back on around 5.
Oh.
Nobody was.
Somebody-
No.
Shenanigans.
Somebody pulled a plug.
You turned the lights off when you left and.
I think the issue,
What was that all about? What was that called?
it's essentially a triangular shaped lot, if I remember correctly. And they could fit 3 lots on it, but one has to be a goofy flag lot around the back because of the lot width. And I think they were trying to get a reduction in the lot width so they could just get 3 frontage lots instead of having some oddly shaped properties. I don't think it was really to get more lots on it. It was just the configuration of how the lot. That's been hanging around for years too. They just decided to reinvent that. Same, not same, but the Almont sketch plan, you saw a letter from me on that. They chose to pull themselves from the agenda last month. My understanding, they're revising the sketch plan to try and address some of the things that I brought up and, resubmit it.
We never saw a plan on that, did we?
It never came to a meeting, no. It was asked not to be on the agenda. They're calling it Almont Properties. It's the property behind the restaurant. Saggio's back in there.
Right.
The cornfield.
The cornfield, yeah. Oh, the cornfield. Any word on something along with 223 Ridge Valley? Yeah. Is that come up?
23 Ridge Valley.
Would be the back edge of the 6 house.
Oh,
Sack, and then the Groff property.
I haven't heard anything.
Interesting. So, right up from my place. Runs from Ridge Valley to back to the property that would come off of that little cul-de-sac across from Unruh's property at the end of the runway.
Yeah.
Property. It butts up to the hospital property.
Right.
So the hospital property comes down, comes up, property that goes over to Long Avenue. This property runs from there out to Ridge Valley. It's all surveyed. It's all.
I haven't heard anything.
Okay. It's probably gonna come up.
Who's doing it?
I'm sure it's.
You don't know what.
Yeah, I don't know.
Speculation with point.
I don't know. I can't read handwriting on the stakes.
Yeah. All right. Any other old business? All right.
That's all I have.
Move on to new business. I don't have any new business. Anyone else?
I have none. Nope.
All right. Any public comment? Okay, good.
You talked enough, guys.
Yeah,
You guys,
thank you.
I hold you up.
We're good.
Thanks for what you guys do.
All right. So thank you. Seeing no public comment, look for a motion to adjourn.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone.